Hello everyone and welcome back to Nintendo Everything Refresh, the weekly news show where we keep you up to date as to everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. I'm your host, Nick Serpa, and we have also got Dennis Gagliardato.
Hello, hello.
And we've got Nicholas Shade.
Hello everyone.
And I apologize we did not have an episode last week. I was off getting married, so, just this little thing, but we're back.
How dare you? Just a little thing, nothing life-changing,
Yeah, nothing major, but
yeah.
But we are back this week, and we've got some stuff to talk about. Thank goodness. That way you don't just have to hear us make dumb jokes all this hour long. Although we'll probably do that anyways.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start off by talking about the Super Mario Brothers movie. That was a big thing this week. Lots of conversation. We all have opinions about it, I'm sure. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. There was a new trailer that came out, like 15-minute long trailer. Basically a little mini presentation. Revealed a ton of new info about that game. So a lot to unpack there. We're going to talk about the next games coming to Switch Online. We're going to talk about Persona a little bit towards the back of the show. And some of the games that have been coming out. There have been quite a few games that came out just these past few weeks that we just want to touch base on real quick. So, pretty packed show. But let's start with the big news of the week. The Super Mario Brothers movie, voiced by Chris Pratt. I just want to start with that because, man, that was like the big question is, what is Mario going to sound like in this movie? And now we know, I guess. Dennis, how would you describe... how would you describe Mario's new voice?
I would describe it as what we unfortunately expected, which was, look, let me just preface it by saying this. I actually really like Chris Pratt. Okay, I think he's cool. I like his movies. I'm a big fan of Parks and Rec. It's one of my favorite shows of all time, and I don't think it would have been the same without him.
No.
In particular, playing
Seems like a great guy.
In that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. However, historically speaking, he has done quite some voice work actually, with a few CG films, and and regardless of whether those movies have been good or not, his work on those films have always been very. I don't want to say one-dimensional, but you watch these movies and you go, yeah, that's Chris Pratt. You don't really you don't have to go searching, in case you're a little uncertain, like, yeah, well, that kind of sounds like him, but I'm not too sure. Either way, that's an interesting voice for that character. It's Chris Pratt again. And so it's unfortunate in that regard, but again, credit where credit's due. Everyone else, however, in that cast that we've heard so far, anyways, we haven't heard everybody, but is fantastic, and they're doing proper voice work, and yeah, I just wish Chris Pratt would put a little more emphasis in it, because towards the end of the trailer, never mind the part where he first comes out of this portal or whatever. It happened so fast. I don't know if he just came out of a pipe or what.
I don't know
but
what the deal was with that.
Yeah,
your typical amnesic RPG hero. Waking up. Where am I? What's going on?
Right.
Why am I wearing this?
Speaking of, we need Super Mario RPG to come back. But he kind of he gets up after he's like and then he just looks around like, oh, what is this place, And I was like, yeah, no, that's Chris Pratt. But the end part where, Toad comes out and he's just like, follow me, Mario, we're going to go to the Mushroom Kingdom. And he goes, all right, Mushroom Kingdom, here we come. But he says it in the most unenthused, I don't know if he had just woken up when he walked into the voice booth or what happened, but he's, just so unenthusiastic, right? He's just Mushroom Kingdom, here we come. And I'm just like, dude,
wow,
are you
Dennis,
not excited to be here?
That was a great performance right there. I'm shook.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I tried to be as spot on as I tried to be as spot on as possible. I'm sure the directors thought the same thing of Chris Pratt. Yeah.
Oh no! All right, Nicholas. What did you think about this trailer, man? Like, what was going through your head when you were watching it?
Well, I mean, the first part we saw with the Bowser section was, incredibly impressive to me. Obviously, I think we we kind of knew that Illumination would at least have the visuals down because, they're pretty good at that part at least.
Yeah, their animation is
and they
up there.
definitely, yeah, they definitely got that down because, oh my god, everything looked incredible.
Yeah,
the look of the castle, everything with the ice section, the armies, the penguins, everything with Bowser. Bowser looks so good.
So good.
Like, there have been some people not super happy with Mario's design, or kind of like, he looks a little too realistic. But I think basically everyone has agreed that Bowser looks awesome, and Jack Black has done an amazing job from what we've heard.
Yeah, I mean, we heard like 4 lines from him, but like he nailed every single one. Like
yeah, he just sold it.
Yeah, like Bowser, like he does. I mean, he talks like he but he doesn't talk a lot usually. Like you mostly just hear him going like ha 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 or whatever. but
Yeah.
but yeah, no, that was a big surprise for me for sure. And yeah, I agree with you. There's the production values overall are just much better than I was expecting.
Yeah, that was definitely the highlight. And then, once it shifted to the Mario section, I think, like most people, it's like, oh, that's definitely Chris Pratt who's playing Chris Pratt playing Mario. So, still nice to see Toads and whatnot, but I'm not willing to give a 100% judgment on whether that's how good that part's going to be.
It was a teaser.
So I think we still only heard like 2 lines from him, so there's a chance that the performance is still a little bit more, how to put it, just
interesting,
original, I guess.
Yeah,
a little bit more interesting than we might think at a first glance, but we'll have to see. I do like what they're kind of setting up, just in terms of, I guess, lore and world building, or just narrative, where they're going to Penguin Kingdom. When's the last time we've seen penguins featured prominently in a Mario game?
Right? Like, they're digging into the Mario lore, like, which, I mean, it's not... Look, I'm not expecting, like, this, like, complete, like, okay, the Lego movie, for example, which I think also had Chris Pratt in it, right? Like, if you're a Lego fan, right, you pick up a lot of, like, little things in that movie. Like, little nods to, like, whatever, like the history of Lego or certain sets or whatever. So I'm sure we'll get plenty of that in this movie as well. Just based on what they showed off, even with like the poster, like people were analyzing the poster and being like, look at this little reference, look at this little thing. And so yeah, so it was super cool to me to see them referencing like characters that we don't see a lot of, like the penguins and all that, who are I guess could be like a decent chunk of this plot arc. But yeah, like at the same time, I mean, it was a teaser, but I don't really have a sense for like where it's gonna go. Like, it doesn't need to be this grand epic story to get people into theaters, right? Like, kids are going to want to go see it because it's Mario. Adults are want to go see it because it's Mario and they have nostalgia for it.
Yeah.
So it's going to do great, even if it's not like this earth-shattering story. But I hope it does something interesting plot-wise. Like the tension that was like coming up in like that first scene when like Bowser was coming down, like the only time I really remember feeling like that way in a Mario game was like with the Mario Galaxy games, where Bowser's posed as like this like pretty elusive, like very serious threat. Like I'd say more so than in a lot of other games, and I could see them trying to like get close to that with this movie. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, what it was reminding me of was actually Paper Mario 64. It was hitting a lot of just similar vibes between the Power Star that he seems to obtain at the castle kind of being the Star Rod equivalent, or the penguins having their own culture kind of just feeling like something that we would see in a Paper Mario game, or at least an older one, where they tried to establish different towns and cities with different NPCs based on different races. Even just how the Koopas, for instance, all had unique designs in the army. It wasn't just the same Koopa model copy-pasted 100 times.
Right.
They actually had little like special touches to the armor and stuff. It just felt really nice to see.
So I guess the question right now is like, based on what we've seen so far, is this something you guys are going to rush out to the theater to go see, or is this more of a wait till it hits Netflix in 6 months kind of thing?
No, this is definitely a go to the theaters and see it. I mean, I for me, here's the thing. I mean, I've grown up with Mario, as I'm sure many people have, including you guys, and it's in my DNA. This is something that I think, from the little bit that we've seen so far, I think it looks absolutely incredible, animation-wise, and just the art direction is fantastic. So, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this is something that I need to be there day one for. I don't think there's anything really Mario. There's very few things that are Mario related that I haven't been there day one for, including like spin-offs and stuff like that. Because even so
You're
like
a
it's
super fan.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, yeah. So it'll definitely be a day one thing for me. Yeah, without a doubt.
Very cool. What about you, Nicholas?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I
agree. I mean, unless we see something in a future trailer that just somehow completely turns me off from the premise of the movie, it's, at the very least, I'm willing to give it a definite chance because it looked really good, in my opinion. So,
yeah, I think it looks good. I definitely want to see like a little bit more of it, just so I have a better sense for what I'm getting myself into. Because I mean, with how much they were hyping up this trailer, I mean, they did a whole Nintendo Direct for this thing. We really didn't get to see that much of it. So right now I'm like, I'm interested in it, but I don't see a lot of movies in theaters. Like, something's really got to wow me for me to go do that.
Well,
I'll definitely see it at some point. We did get to hear Chris Pratt talk about stomping Koopas. That's true. I mean, you're selling it hard, Nicholas, but yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Let's just, call a spade a spade. That interview segment before they showed the trailer was just very bizarre. Like, Jack Black just kind of, acted normal and all, but the Chris Pratt segment was just very odd.
Yeah. He looked like he sounded like he was kind of being held up at gunpoint, and they're like, "You better say this. You need to say this."
I've always wanted to play Mario.
Yeah.
Don't shoot me.
Yeah.
Well, okay, as much as it's easy to bag on him for sounding like Chris Pratt, someone brought up a good point. Is how do you do an Italian accent in a movie like this without it sounding either totally just insensitive and artificial, or just not good? I don't know. Could Chris Pratt do a really convincing Italian accent? I'd be interested to know. But
that'd be interesting.
I mean, yeah,
maybe not the
really at its core, they just should have gotten at its core, they really should have just probably gotten a different actor if they were going to do a more recognizable original voice for Mario. But
right,
yeah, we'll see.
I do wonder
I will say that I don't know
why didn't they just hire Charles Martinet? I mean, he is the voice of Mario, I'm sure.
And he's in the movie, which kills me. It's right. If you're going to put him in the movie regardless, why not, have him be Mario like he's always been?
Well, and I'm pretty sure he's been in other movies too. I'm sure he has more voice talent beyond just yelling out "Wahoo" in an Italian.
Yeah. I don't know about movies, but I do know that at least he played Parthenax in Skyrim, which has a very different voice from Mario, considering that it's a giant ancient dragon. So he has range.
Okay, sure.
He was recently in the new Dragon Ball Super movie, actually, Superhero.
Oh.
He was in that. He was one of the characters in that one. I'm trying to remember which one. I think his name was Alpha or something. But yeah, he was there and pretty prominent too. So yeah, I mean, he's actually got a surprising amount of range. But yeah, I don't know if you guys did you guys see trailers from other regions and stuff, dubs from other regions?
I did see the French one.
Yeah, the French one and the Portuguese one. And then there's another one. I'm trying to remember what the third one is. But Mario sounds great in all of them. The dubs, I'm just oh yeah, okay, no, that sounds pretty legit. But then, the official sort of English one is yeah, that's Chris Pratt. So
yeah, that's an interesting way to. I never thought about that, but yeah, it must be an immense amount of work to translate any movie into all these languages, let alone something like the Mario movie, which I'm sure they're going to want to distribute in every corner of the planet.
Yeah, but I just think it's interesting because there's theories, right? Of okay, well maybe Mario, he gets sort of transported from the real world, and that's why he looks a little more realistic into the Mushroom Kingdom, right? And that's why he has the voice that he has. But even so, how does that? I don't know. I just feel like there still would have been some sort of direction in terms of how to do a similar voice to what Chris Pratt was trying to do, which was just Chris Pratt. with other regions, but instead they more or less nailed the Mario voice,
Yeah.
So what was going
I'll have
on
to look
here
into that.
with the American version? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, it's also this thing. We should move on, but it just, you know, when they were announcing like the casting and stuff, and I wasn't sure about Chris Pratt. Like, you mentioned this, Dennis. You were like, it's Chris Pratt. He sounds like Chris Pratt, and I feel like this is the case with like so many movies nowadays. Like, when I see a movie with Dwayne the Rock Johnson in it, I know I'm not going to be able to like the new Black Adam movie coming out. I would love to watch a Black Adam movie, but instead I feel like I'm going to be watching a Dwayne the Rock Johnson movie. You get what I'm saying? So I'm just
I do actually.
Dwayne the Rock Johnson plays Dwayne the Rock Johnson, and Chris Pratt plays Chris Pratt most of the time. So I'm really hoping that when the movie comes out and we all watch it, we're able to not forget that it's Chris Pratt, and just hear Mario. Like, I think that's what the directors and writers would want too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's absolutely. I mean, no, you've hit the nail on the head. I'm in the same boat of like The Rock, where it's just like I again, full disclosure, I love The Rock. He's one of my favorite people on earth. But he's also someone that like I grew up with. Like I watched him on TV through wrestling and all that stuff. So like every time I see him in a movie, I'm like, I see The Rock. I don't see what character he's playing. So same thing as you, right? I'm so stoked for Black Adam, but yeah, I just see The Rock in cosplay. Basically, that's what I see. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will try and
At least
withhold
Luigi seems cool.
Yeah, we didn't get to hear him speak though, did we?
No, we got like one yelp, right?
Yeah.
It was a good yelp.
So, yeah. The other thing that may keep me from seeing this movie, like the day it comes out or whatever, is I showed the trailer to my wife and she was not impressed. She was. I was like, "Do you have any interest in this?" And she's like, "No, not at all. You'll probably see it by yourself." And I'm like, "All right, well." At least I know what I'm getting myself into here.
Them's the breaks.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's move on. So that was kind of the big thing this week. But I'd say the second big thing was we got a lot of news about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. We got like a 15-minute or so like presentation on this game. Basically a little mini Pokemon Direct. I'm sorry, Pokemon Presents, excuse me. Yeah, so that alone was really surprising. I mean, I feel like we've seen so much of this game at this point. And yet it's still like hard for me to process that it's like right around the corner. But yeah, so I just want to call out this particular thing from the trailer. You can take your Pokemon on picnics. I mean, if that's not enough for you at this point, I mean, can you really call yourself a Pokemon fan? You can make sandwiches. You can feed them to your Pokemon. Like, that's wonderful.
Real physics-based sandwich making. It's the evolution of the franchise.
Yeah, it's like Cooking Mom a Pokemon version. Yeah.
The thing that I thought was really interesting that I think I like what Scarlet and Violet is doing this time around in terms of like the hangouts, because it reminds me more of I think they call it Pokemon Ami in Pokemon X and Y. Not so much what they did in Sword and Shield, which was just kind of like more of like, oh, let's just take a quick breather in this tent or whatever, this little campfire, around this campfire, and let me just throw this little, I don't know, go fetch. Like that. I thought that was the most boring thing. Yeah. I did not have any fun with that at all. I did that maybe 3 times throughout my gameplay of playing that. But this looks like something I would spend a lot more time with for sure. Especially with, like, it seems like they increased the production quality like tenfold with this thing too, man. Like, it just seems like there's a lot more interaction, there's a lot more expression in the Pokemon versus them just being like, this dead face one emotion sort of thing that everyone sort of shares. And but man, those selfies though are like incredible. I'm so excited for that. You have no idea. It's a simple thing. It's a small thing.
It's those little things. Yeah, it's those little things they add into the Pokemon games that just add in a lot of the charm and quirkiness and
exactly.
I think I remember the DS ones. Like, some of them were basically like you have like a full like Tamagotchi game with your Pokemon with you. Like, just like awesome little stuff like that. But yeah, we got to look at a lot more than just that. We got much more of a look at the world. A lot of stuff that we knew about, but just kind of like a deeper look, I would say. We learned a little bit more about the terrestrialize mechanic. God, I don't like that word. Terrestrialize.
I don't like that either. Yeah.
Yeah. So, apparently, like any Pokemon can be like any Terra type. So you can, like, we knew that you could change Pokemon's types, but they basically confirmed that you can change it completely to a different type, which is, just opens up an insane amount of potential. Yeah. Although the way they showed it off in the trailer, it was like someone just like a Pokemon was just like sitting like completely motionless in a field, and you just walk up to it. Did you catch that, Nicholas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Pokemon encounters didn't seem particularly impressive in the way it showed it off, because it was almost always just a single Pokemon standing in the field in front of you that you just kind of walk into.
Yeah.
It literally looked just like, those things that have always made me laugh. Just like, meet me at 3 p.m. after lunch on the playground, dude, and then we're going to fight. Like one of those middle school, like elementary school fights or whatever, where you have to like schedule it. And they're just sitting there just waiting.
Never
with like
ceases to impress me, Dennis. Like, you're just like casually referring to this meme that I haven't thought about in like 5 years. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure.
But that's what it reminded me of, that or like Grease. They're gonna have a dance off or something. Everybody's just standing there, just waiting. After school by the bleachers. Like you ready to do this, man?
Fight me, bro.
All glowing and everything.
Yeah.
Ready to terrestrialize, dude? Let's do this.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, so we saw a little bit more about that. Honestly, this is all like a blur to me. I'm just glad we got to see a lot more of it. Like, the more I see of this game, the more I'm impressed by the world it's building and just kind of the vibe they're going for with like the school setting and everything. It just feels like it has a lot of potential. This might be the first Pokemon game I play since, I think the last one I played was Pokemon Black and White. So I've been out of the loop for a little while.
Really?
Yeah, I know. But that, I picked up that game back when I was like too young to like really understand what I was doing. So I never really had like a deep attachment to the Pokemon games in a way that a lot of people do. Oh no, that's not, you know what? Now that I think about it, I did play a little bit of Pokemon X and Y, but those ones didn't really grab me in a big way. But yeah, the more I see of this game's world and all these new ideas they're bringing in, it all just looks great. And there's a giraffe Pokemon, so I mean, hey, can't beat that.
Yeah. What is it? Giraffe got turned into Rigaraff, for Rigaraff, whatever it was called.
Rigmarole.
But yeah, what a weird name. Like they literally just took Giraffe and was just like, let's turn these letters around a little bit. So, there we go.
Yeah.
That was the challenge. We're still going to use these letters, these exact letters. We're just going to move them around a bit.
I mean, hey, though, like, it can't be an easy job having, like, hundreds of Pokemon that you have to come up with unique names for. Like,
yeah.
Nicholas, what do you think about all this? I mean, we have seen a lot of this game, but was there anything that really just, like, shocked and wowed you?
Not especially. I mean, I was really surprised to see that was a 14-minute trailer, because I think that was just very unexpected in general. It was nice seeing more actual gameplay of the game. Personally, I don't know. I guess I would have liked to see more new things, because I do think a lot of what they showed off was stuff that we were already aware of. Just some of the new stuff they showed off, like the picnics with the TM machine, was neat, but a lot of it was stuff that I was already aware of, so it didn't feel as new, I guess, as some of the previous trailers. I don't know. Fundamentally, I'm still kind of in that hesitant zone. I still just haven't seen anything that grabs me personally, but it looks fine. It looks good. The picnic mechanic seems neat. A lot of the new Pokemon are cool. I like Giraffe's new evolution. I'm sure it'll be a good Pokemon game.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll deliver on the open world well. I'm just still not personally convinced. That's all.
Okay, well, fair enough. Well, this might be more up your alley than Nicholas. There is a Pokemon Scarlet and Violet themed Splatfest coming up.
Yes.
I mean, that's just kind of cool. I have they ever done that before, where they do like this weird
Yes.
like cross promotion?
Well, they've actually had quite a few Splatfests crossing over. Not all the time, but they do them occasionally. There was a Pokemon Red versus Pokemon Blue Splatfest back in Splatoon 1. In Splatoon 2, there was one with Ninja Turtles, which was the best Ninja Turtle, which was kind of fun. I think there was also a Transformers themed one in the first game.
Huh. Wait, Transformers? Are you kidding me? That's weird.
Yes, like Autobots versus Decepticons.
Oh my
I think I
god.
remember that, actually.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, they have some
What a time to
interesting,
be alive.
just random crossover ones.
But yeah, so this time it's choosing your favorite starter Pokemon, which the names I do not remember right now. But there's the cute one, there's the other cute one, and then there's the final cute one. So pick one of your favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get
grass
to choose
and fire
between-
and water.
Yeah, I think it's cool to see the Splatfest being announced. I think a lot of people, kind of me included, are a little bit disappointed at this, just because Splatoon generally always has a Halloween-themed Splatfest that is, pretty fun. They usually call it Splatoween. It's usually like nice and themed, and like the plaza ends up changing to match all the Halloween setting and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So the fact that they're apparently skipping that because they talked about this one being the next one is a bit of a shame. I'm a little sad we're not apparently getting a Splatoween Splatfest. There have been theories that we might be getting something else, like there was that big run mode that they talked about in the Splatoon 3 Direct, where it's just like Salmon is invading regular stage maps. Maybe we'll get something like that, but I don't know.
I could see them
I'm
doing
happy
something
we're getting
still.
a Splatfest for this. Yeah. I just wish we had, like, say, vampires versus werewolves versus zombies or something silly like that. That'd be fun. But
That'd be really cool.
ultimately, it's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, surprise Pokemon news. And that game is right around the corner. I mean, we still got a couple big games coming out before then. It's a busy time for game releases in general, and especially if you're an RPG fan. As we discussed in our previous episode, lots of RPGs. But yeah, I'm sure a lot of
Square
people are
Enix is
gonna.
on some sort of they're on some sort of crack right now.
I don't know
'cause, like,
what
my
is
God.
going on over there.
Yeah, they you want to talk about crunch, man. Like, I feel bad. Like, I'm just like, guys, look, I appreciate it. Believe me. I love RPGs. I love everything you guys have been releasing pretty much all year. And then not to mention the stuff that's going to be coming out, like Octopath Traveler 2 and then Harvestella, to name a few. Like, forget it. I'm stoked. But, like, please, somebody go on vacation.
Yeah,
You deserve
like-
it at this point,
Like, give us all the RPGs, sure, but also like, please
Yeah.
take your time. Like, I don't need all my RPGs.
Yeah.
I don't need 2 RPGs within a week of each other. Like, that's.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's going to perform below expectations anyway, so just take it easy on yourself.
Right,
you
and then
know?
they're going to sell off the studio and turn it into a crypto blockchain NFT thing, and then
Right.
the circle
right,
of
yeah.
life for game developers nowadays.
The circle of life.
Yeah.
Octopath sold 2 million? Unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Yeah.
Unacceptable.
The next Octopath
must be
game,
like Ubisoft now.
I'm sorry to tell you, Nicholas, it's just going to be collecting NFT versions of the characters and trading.
Oh no, stop.
Sorry, hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Poor heart can't take it.
All right. Well, on top of all that news, we also got some news about some classic games. This one was announced for Switch Online back when they gave us our next round of expansion pass titles. And that game is Pilotwings 64, hitting the Switch next week, actually, right around the corner. Or this week, actually, by the time you're listening to this. Which I'm really excited to see this. I've never played Pilotwings 64. But I've always been curious about it. It's just one of those weird, quirky, oddball Nintendo series that we just haven't gotten a new game in a long time, and I'm really excited to try it. Actually, I actually think it'll hold up pretty well. I hope I'm not proven wrong by that in about a week, but like it's just a cool idea, Like you're just flying on an island, and just doing these little flight-based challenges. You can have a freaking like jetpack rockabelt thing. I mean, like what's not to love?
Yeah, I never played the original. I played a little bit of the Pilotwings 3D on 3DS, when the 3DS came out. But I don't know how similar that was because I have no history with Pilotwings, so I wasn't sure if that was a remake or if that was just a sort of a, like a 3D just version of it or what.
All they really did, I mean, I didn't pick that one up at the time because all they did was they took the Wii Sports Island and just plopped it into the 3DS and slapped Pilotwings on the box,
Yeah. They just needed something to show off. But I'll tell you what, man, you want to talk about impressive tech demos. I know this is slightly off topic, but, I didn't get a 3DS until maybe like a year or so after it came out, maybe 2 years after it came out, because I was waiting for Pokemon X and Y. I got mine a month before Pokemon X and Y came out. And, man, every time I would walk into a Best Buy, like I would, even though it like gave me a headache, I would put that 3D on full blast because it blew my mind at the time, and it still blows my mind that like glasses-free 3D, and how some of those games really utilized it was fantastic. I mean, really, I think that was, in terms of like Nintendo innovation, I think that was them at their peak, quite frankly. It was 3DS was something else. Yeah.
Yeah, 3DS still manages to blow me away. Like every time I pick it up, like the 3D screen thing, I know a lot of people thought it was gimmicky, but it always impresses me pretty much without fail, and I think it always will. But yeah, no, I'm pretty happy that we're getting Pilotwings 64 on the Switch, and I think I actually might sink a little bit of time into it.
You gonna go esports with it, Nick?
Well, yeah,
gonna go the Pilotwings esports.
Not that hardcore about it, but
Oh, okay.
Okay, did you guys watch the trailer for it though?
I did not.
Oh.
No.
Okay. Do yourselves a favor.
Is it something special?
It is special. I can only describe it as, so there's like a guy, he's like picture this in your head.
Maybe late one night you imagine shooting missiles from a gyrocopter at a giant robot. That's oddly specific. Hey, we've all been there.
It's like smooth.
What is this narrator?
Are you listening to it now?
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah. Okay. It's like smooth, like almost sensual jazz playing in the background, and then someone talking like this. Pick up your jetpacks and fly away. Yeah. I think
this should have Careless Whisper in the background.
it might as well be. Oh. Dennis, do yourself a favor and watch this trailer later, because it will sell you on Pilotwings 64 harder than anyone has ever sold you something in your life.
I'll do it. Honestly, like sometimes a good trailer will do that, especially if I'm not certain, because well, speaking on 3DS, what did that for me was actually Tomodachi Life. Tomodachi Life, I wasn't like sold on until like there was just one ridiculous over-the-top trailer of like Bill Trinen, and he's like giving a presentation in his Mii form or whatever, and then was Reggie giving it was absurd. It was one of the most absurd trailers or directs, whatever it was, I can't remember, but it was so over the top, and I was like, you know what? Just because of how stupid this was, you sold me. Congrats. I gotta get it.
For ambition.
So
yeah. But yeah, I will say I do wish they were kind of bringing out these N64 games a little faster. Like, they kind of are positioning each one as, like, this big release when, like, really they're not to most people. I kind of wish we were getting a more regular cadence. But
yeah, this is a ROM away, please. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like,
well, they must be doing, I know we've talked about this in the past, but they have to be doing something. Like, there has to be a reason why these games are taking so long. I don't know what that reason is. I'm sure they're not just like taking the easiest approach. I would like to think that, but
I wonder if they're treating Nintendo Switch Online almost as like its own, at least like the services like the Super Nintendo and the NES and now the N64 and whatnot. If they're treating them like their own games, right? Like a live service game rather than something that's a perk for being an NSO member. So since they're doing that, I wonder if they're just doing it little by little because of while they're doing their big releases like Kirby and the Forgotten Land and, now Bayonetta 3 and then Pokemon soon and whatnot, when there's just enough downtime between those big releases that are actual Switch games, they're like, okay, now let's release something to NSO really quick for people who are playing those. I wonder. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, no, I think it does. I will say, they finally got me to subscribe to the expansion packet. I wasn't sure if it was going to happen, but it kind of happened actually
what
because
sold you on it?
Well, it actually happened because a couple weeks ago I played through Splatoon 1, and I was like, was wanting more of it, so I was like, all right, well, I want to see where the story goes. I'll pick up Splatoon 2 and enjoy some good platforming. I knew I was been doing a little traveling, so I was like, I'll check it out. And then the Octo expansion was on there, and I was thinking about buying it. I was like, well, I might as well just do Switch Online and play a few classic games over the year as well, and we'll see if I actually do that. I'll report back in a year, and we'll see if I
You definitely should. Octo expansion is excellent.
I think I will. But yeah, there's just a lot of. I didn't really ever have an N64, and there's a lot of great games on there that I missed, and so now I have a really convenient way to play them. So I'm hoping to dig into a few of them at some point. Maybe I'll start with Pilotwings 64.
Yeah, honestly, I think I have no desire to get into it right now, but I'm telling you though, the moment they add Game Boy Advance or Game Boy Color, whatever, any sort of Game Boy, okay, I'm in.
Really?
That's all it takes.
Give me Golden Sun, give me Minish Cap,
100%. Yep, all that.
I know there are some great Game Boy games, but I've always the N64 on a handheld just always seemed more impressive to me, Maybe it's not really. I mean, it's all old tech, so I guess it doesn't really matter, but
Sure.
I
I mean, give us GameCube games and then maybe.
don't know. Then we're talking. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If only there was a way to play Super Mario Sunshine on my Switch. Oh, wait, there was, and then they got rid of it.
It was past tense. Yeah.
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 But that was a good test case, because we all know the Switch can handle GameCube games now. Some level of native emulation or porting or whatever they were doing there. So I'm sure if you port them, it can handle it. But the actual emulation.
I mean, I don't know how it would work with Nintendo Switch Online, since that's you can't fit a dozen GameCube games on there quite as easily as you could a dozen SNES games, just because of file size. But
yeah, I mean, I think the solution is you give us a GameCube app, but you just make people download the games from within the app. I think they could just do it that way.
The ones that they want.
I know it's perfectly feasible. It would just take an extra step compared to what we have now.
Right. But Nintendo, I'm sure, would always find the hardest solution. We're not gonna just do an app for the GameCube one. We're actually gonna mail you a GameCube adapter.
You have to stream the GaMcube games through the cloud. There's no other way.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
There's no other way.
No,
But first,
don't
before
say
you do
that. Oh.
but you need to get what we call GameCube tickets first, and in order to do that, you have to win 3 games of Tetris 99, and then you can get a GameCube ticket to download one of the GameCube games.
Dennis, if you say it might just happen. We're joking about it, but.
But what's crazy is, as ridiculous as all of that sounds, I'm sure it'll be even more ridiculous. Whatever we've thought of, they've probably already thought of and gone, no, we can do better. And by better, I mean worse.
Okay, all right, I don't want to talk about this anymore before it makes me sad. Let's talk about something that I'm actually very excited for. So we've known for a little while that we're getting Persona 3. Well, we're getting a couple Persona games. Persona 5 Royal is right around the corner. And we also knew that we were going to be getting Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 Golden coming to Switch, but we didn't know when. Well, now we know that they are coming in January 2023, so not too long of a wait. And man, I am so happy that these games are finally coming. Persona 3 in particular, because that game is just, I mean, you can play it if you have a Vita, same with Persona 4, but Persona 3, we don't have it running at a modern resolution in any capacity.
Right.
So I'm really excited to have that one.
I wonder, is Persona 4 Golden is this strictly for console ports? The one that's already on PC, is that one not being touched? Is it just that one that's coming over to consoles? Because I have
That's my
Persona 4 Golden on
understanding.
PC and I have it on Vita too. Okay.
Yeah, I think
that's what I was
it's
curious
the
about.
exact same game. I think they're just bringing it over. They haven't mentioned any kind of extra
Gotcha.
content or features. But Persona 3 Portable, I mean, we've only ever really seen that game running on very low resolution handheld screens, and to be able to plug that one in on a TV and the gorgeous like Switch OLED. Oh, I'm so excited for that. I might actually rebuy that one.
I'm really curious why it is that it's taking an extra 3 months roughly for Persona 4 and Persona 3 as opposed to 5. I'm just curious what it is about that like, hey, we want to wait a bit before releasing those.
I mean, I think it's honestly just breathing room. I mean, Persona 5 is a massive game, and so if someone is picking it up like the day it comes out, there's a very good chance you may not be done with it till January, depending on how long you play these games.
Not to mention, I think the popularity of Persona 5, because I don't know what it was about Persona 5 in particular that made it just all of a sudden blow up. Yes, it was a great game, but I mean, Shin Megami Tensei and by default Persona have been around for quite some time, you know, and but so I don't know what it was about Persona 5, because Persona 5, in the grand scheme of things, didn't really do anything vastly different from its predecessors. I mean, it was Persona. I mean, you know, it still had a great story, had a great cast, had incredible gameplay, and the music was phenomenal, obviously. But I mean, that's par for the course for Shin Megami Tensei and Persona in general. So, I don't know if Persona 5 just came out at a good time where, you know, this was the JRPG that people were looking for, you know. But I think they want to release Persona 5 first because they know that that's the biggest one that's probably going to get the most attention out of all of them anyways. So get that out of the way, give people their fix, and then
hook people with the other two later on.
Exactly.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think so. Yeah, and also just, you know, give people some time to like really enjoy these games separately, you know.
Right.
But yeah, I at least like to your point though, Dennis, about like Persona 5. I think the thing that really like struck me about that game when it came out was we really like. It was the first time for me that I had seen a game that like took like the setting of Tokyo and just did something really unique and creative with it, and it's just immediately striking. Like when I saw the game, I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to play this, you know.
No, I mean, and everybody should. It's a fantastic game, but it's just interesting to me that, you know, that's what happened with Persona 5 in particular. It's kind of like what happened with Atelier Ryza too, right? Atelier Ryza, if I'm not mistaken, was the first Atelier game to ship over a million units.
Right.
And
well, the answer there is simple.
Well, obviously the character's appealing. Yeah.
Yes, it's the Thigh. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Thighs don't lie.
Right. But I mean, like, but Atelier, again, has been around for forever, and in the grand scheme of things, if you play Atelier Ryza, having played so many other Atelier games, it's Atelier. That's not doing anything vastly different. I mean, other than, I think the combat goes into more of a real-time combat system rather than traditional turn-based, but other than that, it's an Atelier game, like, front and center. You know,
maybe just the marketing?
I think like in that specific
I don't know enough
example,
about...
in that specific example, I think it, like, I hate to say this, Dennis, I don't mean to bag on the series that you love so much, but like, I think that was kind of the moment where these games, it started to seem like they were reaching parity with a lot of other RPGs in terms of like their presentation and their scope, you know, being like these like really like big, like impressive Atelier games, you know. I think that might have played a big role in it. Not to say that the other games like were good or anything, like they all had their merits, and but I think what they were doing with Ryza, with like the scope of it and the style and the art, was like maybe a little bit more like appealing to a broader audience, I suppose. I think that's why they did so well. Yeah. But yeah, no. Anyways, back to Persona, which is what we're supposed to be talking about. Yeah, I will say this. The one thing I am a little bit bummed about that would maybe have me even more excited about is it'd be really nice if we were getting physical release of Persona 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Right now we're only getting one for Persona 5, and like I get it, like these are old games that maybe don't market as well, but gosh, it'd be so nice to have a physical copy of Persona 3 on my shelf.
I can see them doing a double pack in the future. You know, kind of like what Spike Chunsoft's been doing with, like, you know, all the science adventure games. Like they just released Chaos Head Noah and Chaos Child together in one cartridge. You know, so I can see, because if you want Persona 3 Portable, let's just say through the perspective of the Vita, Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 Golden, both of those right now, their permanent prices, MSRP is $19.99, right? So I mean, you do a double pack with these remastered versions on Switch and other consoles for, you know, for 40, even $50, I think that would sell, and I think that'd be a fair price but only if both was on one cartridge. Cost kind of like also like what they did with the Digimon Cyber Sleuth. They did that with Bandai Namco. Did that with those games as well. So I think it would work as a double pack.
Packs aren't super common, I will say. Like we get them sometimes, but not as much as we should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Japan isn't getting a physical release for those. I feel like this is the kind of thing that would be right up their alley in that regard.
Yeah, you would expect something to show up on like Play Asia by now, for like a physical release. Kind of like how they did. They even had a triple pack for those Dragon Quest games, the 1, 2, and 3. The ports. So like, and same thing with Final Fantasy. 7, 8, and 9.
7 and 8. Yeah.
Or just 7 and 8. Yeah.
Atlas has always been a little bit weird about just like where they release their games and when and how they release them. Like they make interesting business decisions. I'm gonna say it that way. Like I really don't understand why it's taken so long for these games to come here.
Well, it's even more interesting because they have Sega money now, so it's like, what are you worried about?
But still looking forward to it nonetheless. And in the meantime, there's another game to look forward to that I know Dennis in particular. I'm also very excited for it, but Dennis, I know you're very excited for Master Detectives Archives Raincode, right. Which is I guess probably best described as like a 3D mystery adventure game from the team behind Danganronpa.
It could use a snappier name.
Yeah. Well, okay, I think I mentioned this before. The initial name was Enigma Archives Raincode. Sounds so much better than Master Detective Archives.
Yeah,
when I think Master Detective, I think... You know what I think of when I hear Master Detective Archives? I think of one of those, like, point-and-click, like, hidden object games that you have, like, hundreds of on Steam. Master Detective.
Yeah.
But
I honestly think there's just certain words that I don't like seeing in games anymore that I think everyone should stay away from. Stay away from the word legends, champions, masters is another one. I don't like that word. It's so abused at this point. Kind of like how subscription services, everything's either, plus or max and things like that. Yeah. It's like, stay away from those words. I'm so sick of it. So yeah, I would have much preferred Enigma Archives for sure. Or Enigma Detective. What did you say it was? Enigma what?
Originally it was Enigma. Originally it was Enigma Archives Raincode.
Enigma Archives, like yeah. That sounds so much better. Yeah. Instead of Masters, like here goes another.
Get it together, Spike Chunsoft. Come on.
At least the one nice thing about the title is that implies we'll get more games in this style, and considering that what we've seen of Raincode looks pretty darn good.
Yeah,
that's an interesting prospect.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, we have a lot of new information about the game. We learned a little bit more about the setting, some of the characters, some of the gameplay mechanics. So, as far as the setting, it takes place in a city where it constantly rains, hence the name Raincode. And,
Subtle.
Whoa, really? But, just say that there's the city houses an evil mega corporation that the city is under control of, and so I'm sure just prepare yourselves for a lot of anime tinged drama. I'm very, very positive on that. But I do like the kind of like science fiction tinge that all this has to it. And as far as what we learned about the gameplay, so you can actually, the entirety of the world is rendered, it's like all 3D, and you can like explore it freely. So it's not like as much of a point and click as many of their other games kind of are. It's like, that's what's really exciting to me, is we're getting this kind of gameplay concept from the team behind Danganronpa, but like, like a full modern iteration of it,
Yeah. It's like there was like, I think they saw the popularity. It's a weird thing to compare to, because they are very different games, but I think they saw the potential and the popularity of Judgment, from Ryuga Gotoku Studios, and they're like, let's do that, but like in a Danganronpa style, and I mean, again, it's a weird comparison, but I mean, that's kind of what I see when I look at Raincode. Yeah. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm loving every single second of it. So everything that comes out, I'm like, yes, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, well, and you can see a lot of like the gameplay similarities between a lot of these games. Like, you're investigating crime scenes, you're interviewing people, you're looking for clues and stuff. And then I guess this is actually closer to like AI the Somnium Files, but there's it says one of the things they talk about in this these new details they released are like, oh, you go through the mystery labyrinth, which is like this whole other realm, and you have to solve puzzles in there. I'm like, that sounds really similar to AI the Somnium Files, which I'm there for. You know, I'd be interested to see their take on it. But yeah, I guess it's also similar to Persona. They really love this whole like alternate, gonna travel to this alternate realm kind of thing to do the gameplay.
Man, I can't believe they stole the Tokyo setting from Persona.
Oh, right.
Damn. God.
Yeah, this is such an original setting too. No games have ever been
Plagiarism.
They stole Shibuya.
Yeah.
Damn it.
But yeah,
Now I'm hearing rumblings about an Osaka. God, where's the originality, please?
Dennis, have you checked out any of these new screenshots for this game, or where's your hype level at?
I've seen a few, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty much where it was when it was announced during the direct, or apparently re-announced. I know we talked about it last time on a couple episodes ago, but like it wasn't the first time Rain Code got announced, but it was the first time we'd seen something from it,
Right.
anyways.
Right.
But my hype level is still at the exact same level, man. It's again, I need this yesterday. I need it now, man. I'm a big Danganronpa fan, and honestly, just a Spike Chunsoft fan in general. Anything they publish, dude, like they're one of those companies where it's just like if I see their name attached, I don't care what it is, even if it's not like for me. I gotta get it. I gotta have it. I love
wow.
Spike Chunsoft, so
That's some
yeah.
brand loyalty right there.
Oh yeah,
Give me more Mystery Dungeon, Spike Chunsoft, please.
yeah.
Yeah, if you're listening, Spike Chunsoft, keep Nicholas happy over here. All right.
Please. So I
Nicholas-
want.
Nicholas, I feel like this game could be up your alley a little bit too.
Oh yeah, no, it absolutely is. I'm super excited for it too. I've only played the first Danganronpa. I would like to play the second and third. I'll have to get around to that before this releases. But I love the first Danganronpa. It was super good. So I'm just super excited for this because, I mean, between the first Danganronpa and this, there's like a chasm of evolution
Yeah.
in like just the gameplay concept.
Oh, yeah.
So I am super excited to see how this develops.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But yeah, so those are some of the games that are coming out in the future. But this is also just a very busy time for game releases in general. So I think we are all feeling that right now. So one of the games that is out now, I suppose in a sense, Overwatch 2.
Yeah, I think it finally came out
technically
today. I mean, technically. It was supposed to come out on the 4th, but I mean, that kind of varies from person to person. So, but yeah, as far as I know, I think it's officially out as of today or yesterday because I got an email saying last night actually saying Overwatch 2 is out. I did not get that email on the 4th, let me tell you that much.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, for those of you who are in the loop, the game has been really hard to get into because apparently there was a big DDoS attack, which basically means they're evil hackers out in the world are making the game very hard to play by, like, basically breaking the game's
Flooding
servers.
traffic,
So, yeah. So probably not, like, the fault of Blizzard. I'm sure they're not happy about it at all. But, yeah, a lot of people have had a hard time playing that game. But there's a lot of other stuff that's out right now, too, that does not require an online connection. You got Nier Automata. That port, I believe, is out now. Heard really good things about it. Apparently it runs extremely well on the Switch, which I was a little nervous about.
Yeah, I mean, it's that was bizarre seeing people say like, "Oh, this is a miracle port. It runs crazy well." It's like, "Oh wow, that's from Square Enix too." Like,
Yeah.
the Cloud Kingdom Hearts guys. Huh.
That's right.
I mean, probably more so on the part of Platinum Games, right? Because they're pretty comfortable
Yeah,
with Switch at
yeah.
this point. Although I don't know if they had
Yeah.
a direct role.
We'd
in
have
porting
to
that.
see who did the porting job.
Yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
They
them,
probably
because-
announced that, but
Yeah. But yeah, that's out now. If you haven't played it already, I've heard nothing but wonderful things about it. No Man's Sky is also on the Switch now. Another big, supposedly miracle port that I've also heard a lot of good things about in terms of performance. I'm playing through that game like as like a I kind of like pick up and play it on my Steam Deck from time to time, so I don't really have a lot of interest in the Switch port specifically, but and it is missing some functionality from the main game, so there's no multiplayer in the Switch port of No Man's Sky at the moment, although I think there have been some allusions that it might be possible in the future. But otherwise, it's the full game. And on top of that, there's a big update that came out day and day with the release date that kind of streamlines a lot of the progression. So now, like, if you, like me, do not like crafting things all the time for not very compelling reasons, there's now a new relaxed mode that kind of streamlines that and makes it so that you can focus more on exploring. Like, you're still progressing through the story, but you don't have to craft as much stuff, which I'm like, that sounds great.
That sounds amazing. I like that a lot, because that's always been the most appealing part of No Man's Sky to me, is the exploration.
Right.
Because every time I play No Man's Sky, I'll be honest with you guys, I put on mods galore. And a lot of those mods are basically instant crafting and stuff like that, right? Because I just want to explore. You know what I mean? I'm not here for any sort of, pirate fighting or anything like that. I don't care. I love sci-fi.
Well,
I love
fighting's pretty
space.
good.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it is, but it's just not. It's not for me.
Okay,
It's not for me. It's games like Elite Dangerous and Rogue Squadron and stuff like that. It's just Rogue Galaxy, sorry, are just they're not for me. But those ones in particular, like stuff like No Man's Sky, where I can just explore, is one of the most cathartic experiences I've had, I think, ever. Honestly, and a lot of my hundreds of hours that I've put on PC anyways, I've put a bunch in PS4 and Xbox as well, but a lot of that is basically just exploring, man. It's like the ultimate sense of escapism of just like, dude, let's just go out there, let's go to this world you've never been to and arguably no one else has been to, because there's 18 quintillion planets in No Man's Sky. So and just you always, that wonderment of exploration and always finding something new in every corner is one of the most breathtaking things to me about No Man's Sky that very few games, and I mean very few, have been able to replicate. And it's honestly like the sci-fi. It's always been, when that game came out, it was and still is the sci-fi game of my dreams, pretty much.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Hopefully, if you do play the Switch port, let us know, because I'm curious to hear from someone who's played it firsthand, if you enjoyed it or not. And then one other game I just want to quickly shout out here is Trails from Zero, which is a port of a older game of the same name in the Legend of Heroes Trails series. I'm not super familiar with the series, to be completely honest with y'all. I know it is a very long-running RPG series, and my understanding is that this is this particular release is not a great entry point if you're a newcomer, because if there's one thing I know about this game franchise is that it's a very sprawling story, and all the games are connected, and you really don't want to start halfway through. Am I right on that, Nicholas? Have you? I feel like you might have some experience.
Oh,
with this
I have
franchise.
no. I'm not the person to ask. I have no experience with these games.
Really?
So
This is alluded.
No, I have. I know very little about them. I know
But
that it's a
you're like
long-running
the RPG
franchise.
guy.
Like a. I mean, to an extent, okay.
Okay, all right.
I don't know how many of these have been on Nintendo consoles, to be fair. That's usually where I spend most of my time.
Yeah, not many. Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I've heard pretty much only good things about the Trails series, so hooray for this. I know that there was some kind of controversy that popped up in regards to NIS America shutting down, like, fan translations and whatnot. I'm not entirely sure what all the details on that are, but I think it might have been related to this game's release.
Well, okay, the long and short of that, my understanding is that basically these games from the Legend of Heroes, the Trails series, they historically have always taken a very long time to come over to the West, if they came over at all. I mean, like, to be clear, like, Trails from Zero was a 2010 role-playing game, and I don't think it ever actually had a release here before. So fans, did their fan translation, and yeah, I do remember there being some controversy around that, but I think that's just kind of the nature of, what happens when these companies take so long to bring these great games over. But the Trail series was like almost an annual franchise in Japan for a long time, so I think it was
That's crazy
at the time. Yeah.
Jeez.
But yeah, this is a franchise I'm hoping to get into, quote, someday. So you can quote me on that.
And get in line.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Once I get through
You have
Xenoblade,
Xenoblade
like,
to work through first.
I know. I have to like create my tier list basically of RPG franchises to get through.
Yeah.
All right, so that's basically our show for the week. Thank you, everyone who has gotten to this point in the episode. But before we go, we're going to wrap up with our go-to closing segment. What have we all been playing? Let's start with you, Nicholas. What have you been playing this past week?
So I've mostly been spending my time with Splatoon. Just, casually going in, doing some daily matches, playing with friends, stuff like that. But I did finish up playing Tunic earlier this week. And a review for that should be out relatively soon.
The Switch version.
If not already been out. Yeah, the Switch version. So that was pretty fun. It's an interesting game. I know it got a whole ton of praise when it released, and I think Dennis also really, really likes it.
Absolutely.
It didn't quite grab me. I don't think it quite grabbed me in the way that it grabbed most people. I do think it is a really good game. I like it has a really neat mechanic where you collect pages of an instruction manual in the game world, and it creates an actual instruction manual for the game that you consult in game to try and solve puzzles and find your way through maps and stuff, which is super cool. I don't know that I've seen any other game have a mechanic like that, and it's just really, really awesome. Other than that, it just felt kind of, I guess, standard to me. The exploration is good and kind of Zelda-like, but it didn't feel super outstanding. And the combat felt very Dark Souls-esque, but without really adding much of a twist, if that makes sense. So I ended up kind of being like, hey, it has this one really neat highlight, and then the rest of it is just a really solid, if kind of standard, adventure for me. So overall, good game, just not something... I wrote in the review, it's something that I don't feel necessarily breaks the mold in the way that some of the other really big indie titles like Undertale, Shovel Knight, Celeste, or Hades did. Still a really good title, though.
So kind of what I'm picking up here is you saying, like, it's a good game, but just, like, pretty... not doing anything groundbreaking for you. Yeah.
Other than the instruction manual bit, which I genuinely think is really cool and novel, it kind of just feels like a standard, well-made 2D adventure game, essentially.
Yeah, okay. I've heard a pretty broad spectrum with this game. I've heard some people saying that, like, it really just rocked their world, and I've heard other people saying, like, yeah, if you like this type of game, it's an interesting take on it, but nothing that's going to knock your socks off, so... How's the Switch port holding up for you, for the most part?
It was fine, honestly. I mean, it's a Switch port. The game was originally made for Xbox, so you're gonna have to make some sacrifices, but it's generally pretty good. It holds a relatively stable 30 frames per second. There's a few drops and hitches now and then if there's just a lot of things happening or a lot of things loading in, but it's generally pretty fine. Visually, it's good. It ends up being a little bit fuzzier than I think was probably intended, because the game does generally have a pretty sharp art style, and it just looks a little bit fuzzier because of lower resolution and less visual effects.
Sure.
But the game is it's perfectly fine. It holds up perfectly well. It's a good version to play if you want to play it on Switch.
Good to hear. Yeah, it feels like a game that would be a great fit for a handheld, so... and also might be the kind of game that you want to occasionally play on the TV, so it seems like a great fit for the Switch.
Yeah, it does handle well. It does handle a bit better in a handheld, arguably, just because the drop in resolution isn't as... it's more expected, I guess, because of the smaller screen, so it doesn't come off as being as harsh compared to docked, but yeah.
Right. Okay, no, glad to hear it. Dennis, what about you? What have you been diving into this past week?
So I've been feeling really nostalgic over the course of the last couple of weeks. I've been playing a lot of older games, but the main game that I've been playing has been Final Fantasy IX. I've been playing the remaster that Square Enix ported over like forever ago. I'm not playing like the original, on PS1 or anything. But yeah, I've been having just such a great time with that. That game. Let me tell you guys something about that game. I think so. Final Fantasy X. I don't know. Everybody has their own favorite Final Fantasy, right? Final Fantasy X to me is my personal favorite. I love Final Fantasy X. But Final Fantasy IX, as I've been playing through this, it really was ahead of its time, I think. And as I'm playing this, I'm like, man, this is crazy that they got this sort of production value done on the PlayStation 1. And I think that that's sort of a testament to Final Fantasy in general. Because Final Fantasy, I think, has always had these sorts of grand stage settings that are just so unlike a lot of other fantasy genre or RPG genre games, right? Because a lot of RPGs have they tend to struggle with being a little too linear. But Final Fantasy IX, in particular, I mean, the world building is fantastic. The character development is great, and the cutscenes are just really well done. And it's just crazy to think that this was done on PlayStation 1 hardware back in the day. I mean, I guess it makes sense given I mean, the game came with like 3 or 4 discs. It was one of those types of games. Yeah. But man, yeah, I've been playing it on Xbox, and it's been great. It's been great. And after I'm done with Final Fantasy IX, I'll probably revisit the original Final Fantasy VII. Before I jump into retro. What's it called? Retrograde? What was like the sort of definitive version of the remake that they did?
Oh, Integrate.
Is it retro? Yeah. Integrate, thank you. Yeah, and then so I'll play the original first, and then I'll jump into that at some point in the future, probably on PC. But yeah, I've just been having such a great time with it, and it's really been scratching that itch of, just proper, traditional JRPG goodness, man. A couple episodes ago we talked about, it's. Everyone has a sort of comfort food, right? And traditional JRPGs are my comfort food. So, especially on the more retro side of things. So yeah, it's been scratching that itch. It's a great story, great cast of characters, great world, and I'm just constantly just blown away by it. Just because even though a lot of people will argue, and to be fair, it's a fair argument that that it is dated. I still think it holds up very well. And when you constantly think about when this game came out and the hardware that it was on and what it did for its time, the game was honestly revolutionary. Honestly, I genuinely believe that.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to look at. I mean, it's some people have an easier time with this than others, but when you look at the game in the context of when it came out, that can really add a lot to the experience of playing it in a modern day. You can kind of give you a greater appreciation of what it accomplished. But like that being said,
Absolutely.
It is hard for me to go back to some of these RPGs like where they're just like throwing these 3D character models over the 2D backgrounds, because there's always that piece in the back of my mind where I'm like, yeah, this is like there might be something cool about this, but I could go be playing Tales of Arise right now or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's a big struggle for a lot of people, but
yeah. But I think in a weird way, to me anyways, I feel like they complement each other, because, when you do play something like Final Fantasy IX and using Tales of Arise as an example, you go to something like Tales of Arise and you're just like, wow, man, we've come a long way. This is fantastic. Like,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that sense of appreciation is definitely there. But yeah, just, that trip down memory lane is always nice to have. And Final Fantasy IX has really been scratching that itch for me. Like,
have you been playing on Switch?
And yeah. No, I've been playing on Xbox.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, on Xbox. Yeah, it looks really crisp on the TV. But I've been playing a little bit over the cloud as well, because I have a Razer Kishi for my phone. So whenever I am feeling playing in a handheld mode, I pop in the controllers on my phone and I just start I remote play through the Xbox that way. And yeah, but I'll tell you what though, the reason why I think I've put like 25 hours now into Final Fantasy IX is because I really appreciate the updated features that they put in here that you would typically see in an emulator, right? Which is stuff like, fast forward, like basically time is sped up by 3. If you want to do 9999 actually attack, you can do that. If you want no enemies in the overworld, as you're going from, city to city out in the wilderness or whatever, you can do that. So they have a couple of options to make it much more accessible and much more palatable to the generation today. And also, I mean, with people, myself included, having so many, time constraints and stuff like that, it's nice to have those options because, I'm sorry, I don't want to sit here 45 minutes through this boss fight. I'm going to one-shot you. I'm going to go ahead and one-shot you. You know what I mean? Like, just keep this moving along. Yes, it's rewarding, but at the same time, it's like, dude, like, I'm all about the pacing.
Options. Yeah, it's nice to have the options.
Exactly.
And it's nice to basically have game developers acknowledge that, hey, not everyone's playing this because they want to grind through hundreds of battles. Some people are playing this because they want to enjoy the music, or they want to enjoy the world, or the story, or etc.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, that's why Final Fantasy XIV exists. You go do that there. Otherwise, just let me breeze on by and enjoy this beautiful world, And let me just experience the art that you created without all these obstacles. You know what I mean? Just let me enjoy, and have a wonderful time.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, as far as myself, I've been playing quite a few games lately. One of them being Splatoon 2. I mentioned earlier in the episode, I wanted to work through the single-player campaign because I've just heard great things about it. But I'm going to withhold my thoughts on that until I've actually finished it. One of the other games I decided to pick up and play a little bit of this week that's been on my radar for a while is Sable, which, Dennis, I believe you played earlier this year, I want to say.
Yes. Yeah. It was on Xbox Game Pass. It might still be on Xbox Game Pass, actually, too.
It is for like another week, and that was kind of why I wanted to play it. I was like,
okay.
Now's my chance to give it a shot. I don't think this one is on Switch. I'd be surprised if it was. It's a pretty like, I don't want to say it's like a technical powerhouse, but like visually, it's just a very striking game. And for those who aren't familiar with Sable, I probably best describe it as it's like an open world adventure game. It's got a lot of similarities to like Breath of the Wild, and you're just kind of plopped into this open world, not given a ton of direction, but just kind of generally left to explore and left to your own devices. There's no combat in this game. It's all about exploring, and basically the premise is you are this teenage girl who is going on this like maiden, she's finally reached adulthood, and so she has to go on this ceremony called the gliding to kind of figure out what role she wants to have in life. And so the whole game is just you're exploring this world, you're interacting with NPCs, and you are doing like tasks for them to earn badges. And once you earn enough of those badges, you can decide, okay, I want to commit to this role in life for my character, and that ends the game. That was like the really interesting thing to me for this game. I haven't finished it yet, and I'm not quite sure if I will, but the fact that you can just kind of end the game whenever you want, you're like you can either like figure out pretty quickly like, okay, I really like doing these machinist quests and collecting scrap metal and selling them to this vendor, so I'm gonna focus on that. You can do like pretty much just that, and then decide, okay, this is my character's role, and then end the game. Or if you want, you can like go and explore all of your options before you make a decision. I think that's a super cool mechanic, and it's like it's not really something you see super often.
Yeah, that sounds like a super interesting concept. I also really like the idea of there being no combat and it just being focused on side questing and exploration. It's really neat to hear of games that like they know what their strengths are and they don't try to unnecessarily extend past that,
Yeah. And the other big thing with Sable is you have a hover bike. Your hover bike is kind of how you traverse the world. Some people compared it the if you had to like combine things, people always like to combine things when they're describing something. They say, "Oh, it's Breath of the Wild meets that pod racer scene from Star Wars." Like that's the back of the box pitch. But yeah, there's a lot more to it than that, and I'm really glad I checked it out. The reason why I don't know why I'm gonna finish it is just because it feels like there's just like, as much as I love exploring, the exploration in this game I don't want to say is like super compelling to me. And maybe it's just because of the desert setting. I live in the desert, so I don't really enjoy deserts in video games because I just feel like I'm going outside.
Hits home a little too hard. Yeah.
Maybe. And, you know, not having combat in the game is not necessarily a problem for me. I think games don't necessarily need combat mechanics to be good, but it feels like the quests that you're doing in place of the combat are not necessarily compelling enough for me. They ultimately boil down to go here, collect this thing, bring it to me a lot of the time. You know, sometimes there's like light environmental puzzles, but or you have to like climb up to the top of a tower or something and hit a switch, but there's nothing that really like hooked me super deep. And so I'm not really sure if I want to do another 10, 15 hours of it, you know? How did you feel, Dennis, when you played this game? Jog my memory a little bit.
Honestly, like when you were explaining the sort of overworld, I felt the same way because we talked a little bit about it before we started recording, which was basically, you know, I had said that, you know, I didn't put as much time into it as I would have enjoyed, but I did put in a couple of hours. But I feel exactly the same way in terms of the exploration aspect of it, because I feel like the world, just like you said, could have been a little more compelling. I love the idea behind it. I love the characterization. I love the sort of foundation that they've laid out for the lore and the potential lore that you uncover as you play through the game. Just like you were saying, the art style is visually striking. It's a wonderful game to look at. But yeah, I think because of the sort of desert setting, it wasn't anywhere near as attractive as I think it could have been. And it's not like you can't make deserts attractive, because when I think one of my favorite games of all time is a game that I know most people are, if not everyone's familiar with by this point, which is Journey. Journey takes place pretty much throughout and the entirety through a desert, and man,
Yes.
do they do such a beautiful job in conveying you know, that story through the desert that you walk through in Journey. And so, you know, again, you can make a desert look fantastic. And games like Recore did this great as well.
Yeah, where you have a lot
uh,
of things to do still, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, in the case of Sable, it just that world didn't draw me. But I wonder if it felt flat because of the art direction. You know, so it was one of those things where maybe the art direction, despite it being striking, would have benefited more in a different environment. You know.
Yeah, it's
but,
possible.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think, you know, the thing that stuck out to me was like there's a lot of open space, and I'm sure they did that on purpose because you're traversing with the hover bike for most of it, right? So they want to give you enough space to like make things feel far enough away but still kind of fun to get to. But the hover bike was never really like fun for me to drive. It always felt a little too slow. It always feels like you never really have like full control over it. It kind of like ragdoll like bounces off of things, like if you hit something, like it's not
Yeah.
you know, like not like to a like crazy degree, but enough that like it feels kind of at odds with what they're going with, you know, what they're trying to build with like the art style and the music and everything. You know, everything's very like moody and, you know, serene, and then your hover bike just like bounces off a rock and you know, it's just
Yeah.
Bumper cars.
It's like you hit it.
yeah,
It's like you
a
were jumping on a
little bit.
trampoline or something.
Yeah, but I mean, I gotta give him credit for doing something ambitious. And I think it was like a 2 or 3 person development team. So, I mean, props to them for building something so unique.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, that about wraps up our show for the week. Thank you so much for everyone tuning in to this episode 27 of Nintendo Everything Refresh. We really appreciate all of y'all who have been listening to our show these many weeks, and hopefully many more to come. If you like the show, please spread the word. We are on well, maybe not every, I'm sure there's some obscure one, but we're on like 10 different platforms. Like we're on YouTube and Audible and Spotify and Google Podcasts and all those great places and more. So if you like us on YouTube, go check out our audio version or tell a friend. And we'll be back at you next week with everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. See you guys later.